Okay, so you want to deep dive into world models, huh? Sounds like someone's been keeping up with the latest in AI. I can tell you this is where things get really, really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. It's a fascinating area. It's like we're giving AI its own sandbox to play in. Not just a set of rules, but a way to understand the whole picture, how things work and how they all fit together.
Oh yeah. So it's not just, hey, AI, that's a chair.
Yeah.
That's a chair, you can sit on it. It might break if you jump on it. It's about all those possibilities, right?
Exactly. That's exactly it. And, the source material we have actually defines a world model as an agent's internal representation of its environment. It's all about how AI makes sense of things, the world around it,
Yeah.
and how it figures out what to do in that world.
Okay, so it's not just knowing. It's knowing and then doing. So like, I don't know, imagine an AI trying to get across town, not just following directions on a map app, but actually understanding traffic, knowing that people might jaywalk, and making decisions based on all that.
Yeah, like it's rush hour.
Right.
So it knows to avoid certain streets. Or there's a big parade. And it reroutes itself to avoid the crowds. The document actually breaks it down into understand, simulate, and plan. Three key functions.
Okay, that's not just following instructions anymore. That's starting to look a lot more like, I don't know, real thinking.
It is. And that's why everyone's so excited about world models right now. There's huge potential here. Robotics, smarter game-playing AI. The document even talks about this as a possible path towards human-like intelligence.
Oh, okay, so big implications then.
Yeah.
One example that really jumped out at me was about self-driving cars, Wave, and their GAIA1 system. They're using world models. But it's not just about avoiding accidents, right?
Right. It's way more than that.
Right.
Think about it. A car that can predict what other drivers are going to do. Someone's about to make a sudden lane change. A pedestrian steps off the curb. The AI could react before a human even notices the danger.
That's incredible. That would totally change how we think about driving, make it so much safer. But I got to ask, creating a perfect model of the world, it's got to be insanely hard, right? The world's messy and unpredictable.
You're telling me the document actually highlights a bunch of challenges. The amount of data you'd need is mind-boggling. Capturing every little detail and then processing it all in real time, we're talking massive computational power.
So it's not just a software problem, it's a hardware problem too.
Right.
We need computers powerful enough to handle this.
Right.
It's like trying to download the entire internet onto a floppy disk.
Huh. Yeah, kind of. But despite the challenges, there's some really cool research happening right now. Cutting edge stuff.
Oh yeah. Tell me about it.
Yeah.
Like runway research. They're using videos to teach AI about the world. It's like they're just showing the AI movies and saying, figure it out.
And it seems to be working. The idea is that by watching videos, the AI can learn how actions play out in the real world, how objects interact, what the consequences different choices are, almost like how we learn as kids.
That's amazing. So instead of trying to program every single rule, we're showing the AI what the world looks like and letting it learn from experience.
Exactly. And then there's another company, 1X. They're using world models to create these virtual simulators for robots. It's like a video game, but for robots.
Oh, wow. So the robots can practice tasks in a virtual world before they try them out in the real one? That's got to be way safer, especially for things like surgery or disaster relief.
Exactly. The possibilities are endless. And it's all thanks to these world models, giving AI a deeper understanding of how the world works.
Okay, so we've got these world models, and they're already doing some pretty incredible things. But there's this other buzzword I keep hearing, large language models, LLMs. Is there a connection there? Do they fit into all this somehow?
You bet there is. And it's a fascinating one. See, LLMs are trained on text, right? But what's really interesting is that they seem to be developing their own implicit understanding of the world, even without directly experiencing it.
Wait, so you're telling me that by reading a bunch of books, an AI can start to figure out things like physics or how people interact?
Yeah. It's pretty wild, right? It seems that language itself contains a lot of information about the world. So as these LLMs process mountains of text, they're picking up on those patterns and relationships. It's like learning by osmosis.
So it's not just about understanding the words, it's about understanding the world those words describe. That's mind-blowing. It's making me think about AI in a whole new way.
And that's just the beginning. Researchers are just starting to explore the connections between LLMs and world models. Could we combine them to create even more powerful AI systems? Could LLMs help us build world models that are more efficient and adaptable? These are the big questions being asked right now.
Okay, so we're talking about AI that doesn't just follow instructions, but actually understand the world it's operating in. That's a huge leap forward. And it raises a whole bunch of new possibilities, but also some serious ethical questions, right?
Absolutely. We're talking about AI that could potentially impact every aspect of our lives. So we need to make sure we're developing it responsibly, that it's aligned with our values. but that's a whole other conversation.
Okay, so before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's take a closer look at how world models are actually being used right now,
Hmm.
and maybe touch on some of those ethical considerations. This is where it gets really interesting, so stick with us.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Those ethical questions are a whole other can of worms. But yeah, let's stick with the practical stuff for now, like robotics. The document talks about how world models could lead to robots that can actually learn from experience, adapt to new situations, solve problems they've never seen before.
So we're not just talking about robots that follow a script. We're talking about robots that can think on their feet,
Mm-hmm.
almost like, well, like us.
Exactly. Think about like a search and rescue robot. After an earthquake or something, it has to navigate through rubble, make decisions with limited information, maybe even interact with people who are injured. A normal robot wouldn't be able to handle that. But one with a really good world model. You could assess the situation, figure out what to do, and potentially save lives.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's a powerful example. And of course, the document also talks about self-driving cars. World models seem like they're crucial for that.
For sure. Imagine a self-driving car that can not only avoid crashes, but can also predict traffic patterns, anticipate what pedestrians are going to do, make those split-second decisions that are so important in traffic. It could make driving so much safer, more efficient too.
So it's not just about replacing human drivers. It's about creating a whole new transportation system, one that's designed from the ground up to be smarter and safer.
Right. And it doesn't stop there. The potential applications are huge. Think about AI that can help with medical diagnoses, or personalize education, or even create new forms of art and entertainment.
Oh, wow. So AI, that's not just useful, but creative too. That's a whole other level. But, okay, let's be real for a second. Building these world models, it can't be all sunshine and roses, right?
Definitely not. There are some serious challenges, and the document doesn't shy away from them.
Okay, good. Let's unpack those a bit.
So one of the biggest hurdles is data. You need a massive amount of information to build a good world model. It has to cover everything. The laws of physics, how people behave, all the tiny details that make the world what it is.
So it's like trying to create a digital copy of the entire universe down to the last atom.
Uh-huh, almost. And then on top of that, you need incredible computing power to process all that data. These simulations are super complex and they need to run in real time.
Right, so it's not enough to just have the right algorithms.
Yeah.
You need the hardware to back it up.
Yeah.
It's like
I don't know.
trying to run the latest video game on a computer from the 90s.
Yeah, good analogy. And then there's another tricky thing. How do you even measure the accuracy of a world model? How do you know if it's actually working?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not like a simple test with a right or wrong answer. It's about judging how well the AI understands the nuances of the real world, how well it can predict what's going to happen.
Exactly. And that's why research in this area is so important. It's not just about building bigger models, it's about figuring out how to measure their effectiveness and how to make sure they're aligned with human values. It's a constantly evolving field.
Speaking of research, the document mentions some really cool projects that are pushing the boundaries of what's possible with world models. Let's talk about those.
Yeah. One that really stands out is runway research. They're experimenting with using video generation to train world models. It's like they're having the AI watch movies to learn about the world.
Interesting. So instead of giving the AI abstract data,
Mm-hmm.
they're showing it the world as we see it through video.
Exactly. The idea is that by processing visual information, the AI can develop a more intuitive understanding of how things work, how objects interact, how actions lead to consequences. It's a very different approach.
So it's not just about recognizing objects. It's about understanding the whole story, the cause and effect, the dynamics of the world.
Precisely. And as video generation technology gets better and better, the potential for this kind of training is huge. We could create these super realistic simulations for AI. It's pretty exciting.
Okay, so runway research is pushing the boundaries in terms of how we train world models. What else is out there?
Another really interesting project is what 1X is doing. They're using world models to create these virtual simulators for robots. It's kind of like a flight simulator, but for robots.
I get it. So instead of letting a robot loose in a real factory or a hospital or whatever, it can practice in a safe virtual environment, learn without any risk of messing things up in the real world.
Exactly. It's way more efficient and safer, and it opens up all sorts of possibilities. We could train robots to do things that would be way too dangerous or complex to do in reality.
This is starting to sound like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? But it's becoming more and more real every day. And it shows how world models can not only make AI more capable, but also make the whole development process safer and more ethical.
Right. Because as AI gets more powerful, we need to be extra careful about how we use it. We need to make sure it's aligned with our values, which brings us back to those ethical questions we touched on earlier.
Absolutely, you're right.
Yeah.
And that's why research into world models is so important. It's not just about building smarter AI, it's about building AI that understands and respects the world we live in, AI that we can trust.
Okay. So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about what world models are, how they work, what they can do, the challenges they face. What are some of the key takeaways you want our listener to walk away with?
I think the most important thing is to understand that world models represent a fundamental shift in how we're thinking about AI. It's not just about teaching AI to do specific tasks anymore. It's about giving AI a deeper understanding of the world as a whole.
So it's not just about AI doing things, it's about AI understanding why and how it's doing them.
Exactly, and that understanding is what will allow AI to solve more complex problems, adapt to new situations, and ultimately become more useful to us.
It's about creating AI that's not just smart, but also wise.
I like that AI that can not only process information but also make sense of it in a way that aligns with our values and goals.
But as we've discussed, building this kind of wise, world-aware AI, it's a complex and challenging process. There's still a long way to go.
For sure, there's still a lot we don't know, but that's what makes this field so exciting. We're
Yeah,
constantly learning and pushing the boundaries, and the potential rewards are huge.
absolutely. World models could revolutionize so many fields: healthcare, education, transportation. They could help us solve some of the biggest challenges we face as a society.
I completely agree. It's an incredible time to be working in this field, and I think we're just getting started.
Okay, so before we wrap up this deep dive into world models, I want to leave our listener with one final thought, something to chew on. So we've talked about how world models can help AI understand our world. But what happens when AI starts building its own world models, ones that might be totally different from ours?
Whoa, that's a big question. It's getting into some pretty deep philosophical territory there.
Right, like, what if AI starts seeing things that we don't, making connections that we've never even considered?
Yeah, and if we give AI the power to create its own understanding of reality, those models could be based on all sorts of data, stuff we haven't even thought of, leading to some pretty wild perspectives.
So it's not just about AI learning from us, it's about AI potentially surpassing us, coming up with its own unique way of seeing things.
Exactly. And that opens up a whole new set of questions, like, could these AI-generated world models lead to breakthroughs in science, help us discover things we've been missing? Or could they lead to AI developing goals and values that are completely alien to us?
It's exciting, but also kind of scary, right? To think that AI could go off on its own path, create its own destiny.
Definitely. It's both exhilarating and unsettling. And it highlights why research in this area is so crucial. We need to understand how these world models are formed, how they change over time, and how we can make sure they stay aligned with human values.
So it's not just about making AI smarter, it's about making sure it's the kind of intelligence that benefits humanity, that we can trust and collaborate with.
Absolutely. It's about creating a future where AI and humans can work together to solve problems and create a better world.
I think that's a great place to wrap up this deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground today. From the technical details of how world models work to the big philosophical questions they raise, it's a topic that's sure to keep us all thinking for a long time.
I agree. And I hope this conversation has inspired our listener to learn more about this fascinating field. It's an area that's evolving rapidly, and there's always something new to discover.
If you're curious to dig deeper, we encourage you to check out the source material we provided. There's a ton of great information out there.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe your next deep dive request will lead us to even more mind-blowing discoveries.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning,
Yeah.
and keep learning.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of world models. We'll see you next time.